Schenetir National News. I am Kerbal Changelog. In today's news, among the growing tensions between the nations of Schenetir and Aestaris, the kingdom of Raenzaihg sits idly by, waiting for either nation to launch a strike across its borders. Due to this possibility of war, the top officials in the Schenetir Congress talk about using rocketry to haul munitions and soldiers over borders and natural land boundaries. This experimentation has proved intriguing enough where an abandoned munitions facility has been retrofitted into the new Schenetir rocketry testing grounds. Now, instead of just the runway essentials that used to haul supplies in and out of the facility, there are an additional 20 floors worth of height on top of the main production building, now being labeled as the Vehicle Assembly Building, as well as the old living quarters for the workers has been turned into a research laboratory to test new materials. While this was the most optimal place for the rocket test to be conducted as said by the Schenetir Security Council, the island nation of Isnubia grows wary of this laboratory every passing day due to its military intent. In other news, the first military submarine has been constructed by the Ivana Naval and Diving Academy, showing the possibility of a new third world power.
The first of the SRTG's experimental crafts was the Hopper A1, a one-man, single-stage solid rocket motor that only had one small scientific module. While the craft itself only had one science module, the pilot, one brave Jebediah Kerbin, could collect science manually, giving even more science to the program. The Hopper A1 would soon go down in Kerbal history as the very first step in an accidental advancement for the betterment of Kerbal kind. However, this betterment would not come first, but as a byproduct for a horrible envision of the future. Jebediah took any opportunity he could to gather science in order for the program to research different scenarios for troops in case of any sort of landing. This science collected was only, on average, 10% usable. But with this small amount of science, they were able to research Engineering 101, allowing for safer and more scientifically collective missions. With better equipment came better rockets. The new A2 model could now collect temperature scans. Not wanting to get the same scientific data, Mission Control had Jeb send the rocket towards the VAB, a risky but rewarding flight. The risk was worth it, as many new samples were collected. This would cause Mission Control to launch a myriad of rockets towards various buildings at the testing ground to gain more science. These launches went off without a hitch until an unexpected explosion caused one of the landing legs to blow off the craft violently. Thankfully, however, Jebediah was not harmed from this, but it would be a wake-up call that science is a hard game of wits against Mother Nature. Not one to let science go to waste, Jebediah went on as usual collecting science samples. This mishap would cause the SRTG to finally make a multi-stage testing rocket. Now in the upper atmosphere, more science and more understanding of how Kerbin worked was occurring, as well as the beginning of thought that these rockets may be able to be used for good one day, instead of war and bloodshed. After his safe return, Mission Control gave Jeb a new and even grander rocket for him to send into the stars. After landing safely, the program got a heap of science, allowing them to continue their research of even better rocketry parts. Experiments Jebediah ran were already fully collected. It would help to see if the conditions of the upper atmosphere were truly that of what the reports had earlier said, simply as a safety check for future missions. After a semi-botched re-entry, Jebediah landed safely and started collecting science of all types to scrounge up any possible data that was left over. Unfortunately, they were barely off the required amount for new parts, so they launched a Hopper A2 to grab any smidge of science. This science gathered barely pushed the research needed to unlock basic survivability components, which would ensure Jeb's longevity for the program. This would also allow him to collect more new science which had never been discovered before. However, this flight would not go according to plan, as one of the landing legs yet again blew off the Hopper A2. Once the landing leg blew off yet again, the engineers and scientists knew they had to create a newer, safer, and bigger rocket for Jebediah to man, as the current one was simply too unreliable to land on solid ground, so it would be delegated exclusively for water landings. But now, with this new research acquired, basic rocketry could be unlocked and its components could be used for bigger flights for tomorrow's gaze.